Remember? Remember the good old days. Remember this.
Oh,
You know,
no.
I can tell you what this is not. You know what it's not? It's not this. Correct? How come it's not that? It's not that. You have, this is something squared. You have two factors of x plus 3, so we expand it.
Oh, no.
And then we're using FOIL or multiple distribution. So x times x times 3. Now on the insides here. 3 times x, and then my last. I can combine my OI, so I get x squared plus 6x plus 9. Right? Right? Okay? So I know we're x minus 5 squared. So we expand that out so we can see it a little bit better. And we do our first x squared minus 5x. Look at my insides, minus 5x. My outsides, negative times negative, that's going to be a plus 25. Combine your OI. Let's try another example here. Oh no! Oh no! Oh, we can do this. Who is still afraid of fractions in this room? Oh, stop it. Put those hands down. You are way bigger than that fraction. You can take it. All right, x times x squared. X times negative 3 halves is negative 3 halves x. Well, here it is again. Negative 3 halves x. What's this thing times this thing? First of all, negative times negative is positive. 3 times 3? 9. 2 times 2. So is it very hard to square a fraction?
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me the hard part about squaring a fraction.
This times this is
You square the top, you square the bottom. That's it. So now I combine my OI here. So I'm getting x squared minus, well, let's see, that's minus 3 minus 3. That's minus 6 over 2, right? X plus 9 over 4. Oh, but wait a second. I can reduce that even more. What? What? What's the matter?
I don't like it.
We seriously, we can't do this?
No.
What, negative 3 halves minus 3 halves? Right, the denominator stays the same. Negative 3 minus 3. Now what does that reduce to? Yeah, right? Why are you all crying? Okay, now, we did this before. We did this a while ago. When we first learned it, I said, wouldn't it be nice if we could remember the pattern to get us here? And at that time, your heads were like spinning around. It was like, oh, it was terrible. There was too much going on. You're like, no, 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 no. So I said, don't worry about it. Expand it and figure it out again. And that's still true. However, I want us to think about what is the pattern. How do we get there? Well, look at this. We squared the first one. We squared the last one. So I think we can see that. How do you get the middle piece? You multiply these together and by 2. 2ab. Right? If this is a and this is b, multiply them twice. Right? Let's see if it works here. Square the first one. Square that guy, multiply these two things, you get negative 5x times 2. Negative 2x. No. Alright, now, this is the same thing. That's x squared. What do you have? Now, isn't this always going to be a plus? Even though this is a minus here, you take a negative and you square it, don't you always get a plus? So it's always going to be a plus. And you square the numerator, square the denominator. Multiply these two things together. And then multiply by 2. Don't the 2's cancel out? You get negative 3x. So it still works even if it's a fraction. So you square the first and the last one, right? And then what? For the middle is 2 times, we're calling it A and B, meaning the two numbers. Multiply those two things times 2. And why is that? Because it's here twice. It's in the outside and it's in the inside. So it's always 2 times those products. So let's see if we can do this now a little bit faster. So square the first and square the last. Always going to be a plus here, right? Now what's my rule here? This times this times 2. What do you get? 6 times x times 2. Yeah, why is it times 2? Let's think about that again. Because you got an x plus 6 here, you got an x times 6 here. So a 6x plus a 6x. You've got two of them. Let's try this guy. Square the first, square the last, always plus. What's going to be my middle term? Multiply them together times 2. Negative 20x. Because it's negative 10 times x times 2. Because if you expanded it, negative 10x, you're adding the negative 10x to the negative 10. Alright, what's this guy going to be? Squared, or you can square the last one, plus, right? And then what happens in the middle? Who sees it? Who still is like, I have no idea. Please tell me again. That's what your hand up for? Alright? So square the first, square the last. You okay with that?
Yes.
Yeah. What's 2 times x? Times 2? What's negative 10 times x? Negative 10x times 2. Negative 20x. What's 6 times x? 6x times 2. 12x. Yeah. Why what? Why it's negative? Well, and look, I expanded it out. Yes, because you're doing negative 10x times 2, so this is going to be negative, and you're adding negative numbers twice. So this guy now, because it's a fraction, everything breaks down, right? No. Square the first. Always positive. Square this guy. What is that square? Square it. Square it. 49 over 4. 7 times 7. You're not close. You said 14. 7 times 7. Now you have to do some multiplying. You've got negative 7 halves times x times 2. Well, what happens to the 2's? They're gone. Same rule. Okay. Now, we need this for what we're going to be doing next. So let's just do another example. Let's do an easier one here. X minus, pick a number.
1, 2, 2, 2, 3.
Okay, x minus 2. Ishan, what am I going to get here? Square the first one. Square the last one. Square this, right? Negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, now multiply these two things times 2. Negative 2 times x. What's negative 2 times x? Negative 2x times 2. You did. Alright, who else? X plus 7 squared. Okay. Yeah,
I got it.
You have to do it now.
I got it.
Alright, no, who's doing this one? Square the first one. Square the last one. Square it. Square it. Good. Multiply them together times 2. Yes. That's it. Okay? That's it. That's the rule. All right. Now we're going to work backwards. Let's remind ourselves how we got here. Square them, right? What's the opposite of squaring something?
Square root.
Square root. What's the opposite of multiplying something by process. So I want to create a perfect square trinomial. I kind of did this one in my head here. And I want you to kind of be able to do that. So if I have x squared plus 6x, what is this going to be? 9y. Carmela. Yes, you kind of work backwards here, right? So how'd you get the 6? So say it again, because you did the right thing. How'd you get the 6? 3 plus 3? And so you say, well, yeah. There were two numbers you can add together, so you must be able to multiply them together. And then, what would go here? 3. Oh, cool. All right. I didn't do that with this guy. Get this one to work. Let's try this guy. I don't know why this one stopped working, so. Let's try that again now. So what is this going to be? 25. Now what are you really doing? She said, what two numbers are kind of adding up to the 10?
5.
Well, but how do you get that? You're really doing half in your head. Division by 2. You divided by 2. You said, well, the 10 over 2 is 5. You did that here too. You said 6 over 2 is 3. Then what did you do? You squared that number. Squared that number. You half this, and then you square it. Half, and then square. You can remember those two words, half and square. You kind of have what you do to complete the square. You look at this number in here, half it, square it. Now, how do you get this number now? Got x squared plus 10x plus 25. So what's this? 5. Let's try this guy. Now, these now are not divisible by 2, but what's the number in front of the x?
1.
1. And how do you take half of that?
0.5.
No, just easier than that. Just divide it by 2. 1/2. Isn't that half of what's here? Now we have to square that. What's 1/2 squared? 1/4. Square the top, square the bottom. What's going to go in here? 1/2. How are you getting this? Square with this one, right? It's this thing over 2. That's what goes over here. What's going on with this thing? Okay. Again, it's not divisible by 2, but so what? You take the number and just put it over 2. Okay? Half it. Now square it. What do you get?
121 over 4.
121, right? Square 11. Square the 2. 121 over 4. What goes over here? Right? It's this number over 2. Guess what goes here? Right? Who's following? Well, if you're not following, it's okay. Ask a question. Like, what? What's your question? How to get the 4? How to get the 4? I squared this. So remember how squaring works? The 2 applies to this, the 2 applies to that. Because it's a negative number, what's any number squared? Positive, even when it's negative inside. So square the top, square the bottom. Okay, so we have x squared plus bx. So I have an x squared plus something times x. How do you find the c that goes with it? You half it, and you square it. That's the easy way of saying it. I think I've got a lot of words here. Half it, square it, right? So you find the b, you take half of it, you square that half, and that's your c. So let's try to complete the square some more. What's b? 8. What's half of b? 4. Right? 8 over 2 is 4. Square it. C. That's 16. 4 times 4. And now, even if it's an odd number here, it doesn't divide by 2. That's okay. Your b is 5, right? Half it. Just put it over 2. That's all you got to do. Square that. What do you get? 25 over 4. Square the top, square the bottom. And that's all she wrote. So I've got some tries on the bottom here. I think you can just go ahead and do them. I want you to find the c that completes this square. Now, as a bonus, after you find it, I want you to write it as a binomial square. What? Write it as a binomial square. Something times something, or something plus or minus something squared. We get our values. What's c for this one? 36. Right? Half of 12 is 6. Square that. All right, now we're going to turn it into a binomial square. What's the C. It's much easier to square the fraction. And then what am I going to have in here? Plus 3 halves. Keep the fraction is easier to deal with. Believe me. Okay, questions on this? Questions. Answers. Okay, now, this is all a prelude. You know what that means? It's like a little opening show to solving quadratic equations. We already know how to solve quadratic equations 2 ways. One way is we factor, right? You factor it, you set equal to 0, you set each factor equal to 0. What's another way of solving a quadratic equation? Quadratic formula. And the third way, well, we also have graphing. But the third way we're learning now is using this completing the square. That's what we're learning right now how to do it. Now, you want your quadratic to be in this format. Now, before, it was like put everything on one side, 0 on the other. We're very careful to do this, right? You need to do it in this format to do 1 or 2, right? However, with completing the square, please pay attention. A lot of you are not. Please look at the board. Right, so you're all looking. Okay? This one, I don't want it to look like ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. I want it such that I've got the x squared and the x on one side and the constant on the other. And it's really important that my leading coefficient is a 1. If it's not a 1, we're going to make it a 1, and I'll show you how to do that. It has to be a 1 up front. If you have that, then we can do it. Now, I've got all kinds of words here. I'm not even going to bother showing the words right now. What you do is you kind of write it in this format, but I'm going to leave some space here. So all I've done so far is just kind of rewrite. Just making some space. Because I'm going to complete the square. What does that mean? I'm going to look at this number. You're going to take half of it and square it. What's half of negative 16? And what's negative 8 times negative 8? 64. Right? Complete the square. However, this is an equation, right? Did you just add 64 to one side of an equation? I did. What has to happen to keep this thing an equal? What property of equality says you have to do that? Addition property of equality. I'll tell you right now, this is a very common mistake. We forget to do that. So you might want to, if you're taking notes, and I hope you are, you're maybe making a big deal about adding it to the other side. Okay, once you've done that, I want to turn this into the binomial square. It's now a perfect square trinomial. I want it to look like this. So what's going to be? Right? Take the square root, use this sign. Right? This is what we were just practicing. And then whatever, what is negative 15 plus 64? What is it? 49. That's okay. Now, before I go further with this, I want to revisit something else. So forget this for a moment. This is a different question. If I have x squared equals 9, how do I find x's value? What is x's value? What else is it besides 3? It's got another solution. 3 times 3 is 9. What else times itself is 9? Well, here's my hint, which is the answer. Not much of a hint. What does this mean? What does plus minus mean? I've just written 2 numbers. A positive 3 or a negative 3. If I put negative 3 in, what's negative 3 squared? 9. There are 2 possibilities. Now, how did I basically get here? To undo a square, you're taking the square root of both sides, but you're also remembering that the negative root matters. So what if I have anything in the square root? I'm going to put my happy face in here. And it's squared. What comes out of the square root? What comes out? How come? Yeah. Well, what was the square root of x squared? I know we've done this. What's the square root of x squared? X. What's the square root of anything squared? That thing. So now look at this guy. Look at this guy. If I take the square root of both sides now, what's going to come out on the left side? X minus 8 squared. X minus 8 comes out. Now this one, the square root of 49 is 7. But in this remember the negative root as well. When we take a strict square root, we only look at the positive root, but if I'm solving something squared equals a number, I need to remember the negative root as well, right? Because negative 7 times negative 7 is also 49. I want x by itself, right? I'm solving an equation, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So x equals 8 plus or minus 7. Well, this is two numbers. It's 8 plus 7, and it's 8 minus 7. And these are the solutions. That's them. That's really hard? There's a lot of steps, but once you do it once or twice, let's try it again. Words. Let's just look at this guy. 2x squared plus 20x minus 8 equals 0. You could try to factor it. You could use the quadratic formula, or let's use completing the square. Remember that it has to look like x squared plus bx equals b, meaning my constant has to be over here, and I can't have a tilt. So if I want it to be a 1 in front, what can I divide by? If I divide this by 2, what else gets divided by 2? Everything gets divided by 2, right? Division property of equality. So what do I get? Squared 10x 4 equals 0. Now to do a complete the square, I want my constant terms over on the other side. So I'm going to add the 4 to move it over. X squared plus 10x, I'm going to leave a little space here, equals 4. And once you're here, you're going to complete the square. Everybody's paying attention? Complete the square. So I have a 10 here. What's going to go here? Plus what? 25. How come? You have it and square it. Half of 10 is 5, square it. What do I need to do? I just added 25 to the left side of the equation. Must add it to the side to keep the equality true. Now I'm going to turn this into a square, which is, and then what's on my right side? What is 4 plus 25? It's 29, right? 4 plus 25 is 29. Now I want this by itself. You're going to basically take the square root of both sides. So what's going to happen here when I take a square root? And then I have to take plus or minus, right? I want the plus or minus roots of, I don't know what the square root of 29 is, so I'm just going to write it like that. Right? Is that the square root of 29? Sure. But I want to remember it's negative root of 12. Subtract the 5 to move it over. X equals negative 5 plus or minus square root of 29. This is the exact set of solutions. Two of them. If I want to round it to the nearest hundredth, I use my calculator. I do negative 5 plus square root of 29. And I get, what do I get? To the nearest hundredth, that's about 0.39. And then I'm going to look for my other solution, which is negative 5 minus. Whoops, okay. Negative 5 minus the square root of 29. Just what it is. And then I get negative 10.39. These are the solutions. This is it to the nearest hundredth. This is it exactly. We need an exact answer. What do you think? It's not horrible. Come on, it's not horrible. Let's try a couple others. It's kind of working with some examples here. All right, so I am on page 2. Hopefully you're with me. We're towards the bottom where it says other examples, right? So let's see. It has to look like x squared plus bx equals d. So what has to happen first? Move that to the other side. Subtract that 5. I'm going to leave a little space here because I know I have to complete that square. So this is different from those other methods. The other methods, this makes us happy. But this one we have to move it over. I want to complete the square. I've got a 6 here. What am I going to do? Half it and square it. What do you get? 9. I just added 9 to the left side of the equation. What do I need to do? Add it to the right side. Now turn this into a square. X plus 3 equals, well, what is negative 5 plus 9? 4. Now, we take the square root of both sides. So what's going to happen on the left here? This goes to what? x plus 3. This is going to be plus or minus, what's the square root of this? 2. This one is a perfect square. I can take the square root. Subtract the 3 to the other side, and now I've isolated my x. Let's see what my two values are. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1, and negative 3 minus 2 is negative 5. We could have, let's just do this factoring, just for less. Remember the factoring method? That's a type 3. X and x, right? Two numbers that multiply to 5 and add to 6. 5 and 1. And so I said each of these equal to 0, so what do I get? Look at that. Look how easy that is now. Remember when this was like, oh my gosh. It's another way. I have actually a lot of people prefer this way over that way. They say this way is hard. So you have your choices now. You can go either way. I do need you to know how to do this. You will need to know how to complete the square for other things. So I really want you to learn this method. This one already looks like x squared plus b, x plus d. I'm just going to rewrite it with a little bit of space here so that I can complete my square. What's half of negative 2? Square that. Plus 1. It's always going to be positive here. I just added 1 on this side. Add 1 on that side. Again, very common mistake is to forget to do that. And now what do I have here? X minus 1, right? Square root, this sign equals 1 plus 1. Good. We know that much. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides, remembering that we have a negative root as well. So what's going to happen over here? 1, and then plus or minus, whatever the square root of 2 is. I'm going to add 1 to both sides, and I have my solution. These are the exact solutions. If you wanted to, the nearest 100. Let's just put it in the calculator. 1 plus 2. It's approximately 2.41. And now I want to do 1 minus the radical 2. Is negative 0.41. So there we go. Solution. Oh, this one, I'm going to change this one slightly. You see this one in paper? I'm just going to change it a little bit. It's a little bit hard, so I'm just slightly making it a little bit easier. I'm going to turn that 3 into an 8. So turn that 3 into an 8. I'm just making it just a little bit easier. Okay, I cannot have a 4 up front, right? So what do I do? Divide it out. And if you're dividing by 4, what gets divided by 4? Everything. I'm leaving some space. Okay, now this one. Oh, it's a 1. Let's take half of 1 and square that. What is that?
1/2.
Square it.
1/4.
Right? Half of that 1 is 1/2. Square it to give you the 1/4. Wait a minute. I'm out of balance. Let me put the 1/4 on this side too. Okay. Let's write it as a square. That's x plus what's squared? 1/2 equals, well, 2 plus a 4th is 2 1/4. I want to write it as a mixed number or an improper. 4 times 2 is 8 plus 1, 9/4. There you go. Now I can take the square root of both sides. So this one pops out, right? Equals, don't forget plus or minus. That's the other big error. You forget plus or minus. What's the square root of 9/4? 3/2. Look how nice that worked out. 3/2. Subtract that half. Now I got x all by itself. Okay. Negative 1/2 plus 3/2. Negative 1/2 plus 3/2. That's the easy one. You got the same denominator. Negative 1 plus 3. 2. 2 over 2. 1. Now I want negative 1/2 minus 3/2. What is that? Negative 4 over 2? Which is negative 2. Done. You did it. What do you think? Oh, what's the deal? Are you in big trouble right now? Alrighty. You try it. You try it. Because we're starting to run out of time a little bit. So x squared minus 2x, leave a little space. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. Square that. Plus 1, always positive. Add to the other side. Turn this into binomial squared. That's x minus 1 squared, that's 4. Take the square root of both sides,
That's 120.
right? Square root of 4, don't forget plus minus. Other big mistake people make, forgetting that. Add 1 to both sides. So let's see, 1 plus 2 is 3. 1 minus 2, negative 1. There it is. Who got that one?
I got that.
Awesome, awesome.
That was good.
All right, now let's see. This guy. So, I gotta complete the square. M squared plus 10m equals this negative 8. What am I gonna put here? 25. Half of 10 squared, both sides, right? This becomes m plus 5 squared. What's negative 8 plus 25? I want to say 17. Take the square root of both sides. Remembering the negative roots. I don't know what square root of 17 is. Subtract 5. There's your exact answer. Put it to the calculator. I'll just tell you what I got because we're running low on time a little bit. I got negative 9.12 and negative 0.88. Did anybody else get that? No? Did I do it right?
I got like, I just,
Is that what I got?
I didn't get that one.
Alright, well here it is. So you can look at it when you try it. This thing, what should I do? I gotta get rid of that, I need a leading coefficient of 1. So everything, what gets divided by 3 becomes everything. B squared minus 8g plus 9 equals 0. Move that guy over. Equals negative 9. Half it, square it. What do I get? Half it and square it. So it's always positive, right? You square the number, it's always going to be positive, both sides. And this is what, g minus 4 squared? Negative 9 plus 16 is 7. Take the square root both sides, remembering the negative root. Add 4. Here's my exact solutions right here. When I ran this through my calculator, what did I get? What'd you guys get?
I got 6.65 and 1.6.